Have you ever held a piece of aerogel tile against your face, fired a blowtorch at it, and waited? This material is called aerogel, and it's won 15 world records. That's 15 more than me, and 14 more than this guy. Aerogel is totally dominating. To be fair, it now only has 14 world records. It lost one, presumably gross misconduct. But this little piece of magic is going to help out humans immensely. Before I talk about how much it's going to help us, I want to show you one of my favourite things about aerogel. It is unbelievably beautiful. One little piece of it simulates the entire sky. I made another episode called Do We All See Colour Differently, where I explain how the sky works. So instead of explaining that again, I'll just show you what it looks like. Most of the time, when you gaze lovingly across the table at aerogel, it looks a sort of misty blue, like the sky. This is why aerogel is sometimes called blue smoke. It's because light is shining into the side of it, and the blue light scatters so much on the inside that some of it is scattered sideways into your eyes. The red and green light doesn't scatter very much at all, so when the light is directly behind the aerogel, all the cold blue is scattered in other directions, and you see that delicious warm golden yellow colour, like how the sun looks on a summer afternoon. Did you know that you can make 28 litres of meringue with one single egg white? Now, that might seem like a totally irrelevant thing for me to say, and maybe it is, but I also might come back to it later. Aerogel was invented by your boy Sam Kistler after a bet with one of the lads that you couldn't get the liquid component out of a gel to leave behind a structural solid. Gels are almost entirely liquid, with only a few tiny little solid particles floating around in them. That's why they're so soft and jelly-like. Extracting the liquid to leave behind a rigid solid is kind of a crazy prospect. It's like removing all of the water from the ocean and expecting all of the fish to cooperate, holding themselves together in a structurally stable scaffold. So, weighing up this ridiculous task and the alternative of being considered totally beige one, Sam set about inventing aerogel. The moral of this story is, always succumb to peer pressure. By volume, aerogel is mostly just air. The rest is like the cooperating fish, a crisscrossing network of fragile solid strands holding themselves together. Also, just like the fish, most aerogels are fireproof. Removing the liquid is even harder than it sounds because on a molecular level, liquids are really sticky, and so as you gradually remove them, they pull at the edges of the fragile bits of solid, pulling them apart. Imagine that the sea was all glue and the outgoing tide tried to pull the beach with it. It's sort of like that, pretty destructive. The solution is something called supercritical drying. You ramp up the temperature so that the liquid wants to evaporate, but at the same time, you ramp up the pressure, squeezing it all together so that it can't evaporate. Sneaky. In this state, the liquid becomes something called a supercritical fluid. It's like a liquid and a gas simultaneously. Then, just when it's getting used to its new identity, we suddenly reduce the pressure so that all of those particles of liquid suddenly fly apart into a gas in a fraction of a second, leaving behind that perfect structural solid. Boom! Aerogel. Now, it's not all good. Aerogels are usually made from silica gels, and if you breathe in too much silica dust, you can get a really nasty lung condition called silicosis, which is why I'm not regularly doing this. Despite the dangers, it's a seriously brilliant insulator, and if all of us had it in our walls, we'd be using a lot less fossil fuels, and our heating bills would plummet. Aerogel UK Ltd, who sent me this stuff, told me that if you built an entire house out of aerogel, you could heat the whole thing with a single candle. Sounds a bit extreme to me. Someone needs to test it. Comment below if you're up for testing it, and I'll put you in touch with these guys. Whilst aerogel is very good at stopping the normal conduction and convection of heat, it actually lets heat carried by light straight through it. If you were to build your house entirely out of aerogel, then not only would you be able to see the light of the sun through it, made even more beautiful by the scattering effect, but also you'd be able to feel its warmth. 80 grams of aerogel is enough to cover an entire aeroplane wing, and it provides brilliant insulation for keeping out the pesky minus 35 degrees C temperatures so that the wings can't freeze. The air that high up is actually minus 55 degrees C, but the speed that the aeroplane moves through the air makes it an effective minus 35. The speed that Concorde moved through the air made the air around it an effective 100 degrees C, which caused some big problems. Now for some cool things to do with space. Firstly, aerogel is used in loads of things like spacesuits, the Mars rover. In fact, there was a probe called Stardust that had a particularly ingenious use for it. I don't have time to fully explain it now, but Stardust went into outer space to gather cosmic dust and particles from the tail of an actual comet, and then delivered them back to Earth. How cool is that? Secondly, NASA have started selling off the old insulating tiles from the bottom of their space shuttles. They're not made out of aerogel, but they're made out of baked silica, so it's a little bit of a similar material. You can heat these tiles to 1200 degrees C and then hold them with your bare hands, because they're such good insulators that they won't even pass the heat on to your skin.
Oh, and I forgot to explain about the meringue. Comment below if you know why it's at all relevant to aerogel that you can make 28 litres of meringue with one single egg white.
Thanks for watching, spread the knowledge, deliciously subscribe for more, and remember you can follow me on Instagram and Snapchat at Matthew Shribman.
If you have a science question about this episode or anything at all, send it my way and I'll try to get it answered for you.